I need to confess something before it's too late. For 54 years, I've carried a guilt that eats away at my soul like acid. 3 lives were destroyed on that Christmas night in 1969, all because of my teenage arrogance. Sarah never spoke again. Julie hasn't slept through a single night since. And me, well, I became the keeper of a terrible secret that's about to destroy more lives. That's impossible. It's 3:47 a.m. There shouldn't be any bells ringing now. You know what's strange about trauma? How it makes you question everything. For decades, I've seen therapists, psychiatrists, specialists. They all say the same thing. Mass hysteria, shared psychotic disorder, trauma-induced hallucinations. Sometimes, in the daylight, I almost believe them. Almost. But how do you explain this? Or the fact that every December, all the clocks in Millbrook run exactly 12 minutes slow. I've always wondered why my grandmother chose to tell me the truth that morning, hours before she died. "Katherine," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You need to protect Emma. They're coming back, and this time they know exactly what they want." Emma, my 12-year-old niece. The same age I was when it all began. The same age Emily Winchester was in 1899, when she disappeared behind the church altar. Millbrook, Massachusetts, wasn't just another small snow-covered town in 1969. It was a place where Christmas lights flickered in perfect synchronization across every house, where choirs sang with supernatural harmony, and where 8 founding families guarded a deadly secret. The rule was simple. Never, under any circumstances, sing Silent Night after 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve. They're getting stronger now. The bells, they're resonating with my heartbeat, just like they did that night. I was 16 and thought I knew everything. Sarah Thompson and Julie Anderson were my best friends, and together, we decided to defy that silly superstition. How could we have known that our 3 families were part of the original pact? But before I tell you about that night, you need to understand what happened in 1899. Why Silent Night isn't just a carol. Why some doors should never be opened. The winter of 1899 was the coldest in Millbrook's history. 37 children died of fever that December. The crops had failed, and starvation was a real threat. The 8 founding families gathered in the church on Christmas Eve, desperate for salvation. Pastor Winchester found something in the church's restricted archives, an ancient, dramatic text about sacred songs that could open doors between worlds. Still no hot, Silent Night wasn't just chosen for its beauty, its harmonics, when sung at the right time, in the right way. They could thin the veil between our world and something else. They thought they were so clever. Open the door just enough to ask for help, then close it with the song's end. Each family had to offer something precious to seal the pact. A family photograph, a lock of hair, a cherished heirloom. But the Winchesters, they offered something more. Emily Winchester, the pastor's youngest daughter, stepped behind the altar during the ritual. She never emerged. In every photograph taken that night, she appears as just another smiling face, but witnesses said she wasn't in the room when the pictures were taken. The next day, the winter ended. Crops grew despite the snow. Children recovered miraculously. Millbrook prospered, while surrounding towns struggled. The price seemed simple. Never sing Silent Night during the thin hours. 11 p.m. to midnight on Christmas Eve. The day started with the clocks. Every timepiece in town began running exactly 12 minutes slow. I remember looking at the old photographs on our walls that morning. The faces in them seemed different, somehow more aware. Sarah arrived first for our sleepover, around 7 p.m. She brought an old diary she'd found in her attic accounts of the 1899 incident. Julie came later with something worse, a shoebox of photographs she'd discovered in her grandmother's closet. Each photo showed the same 8 families, taken years apart. But one face remained constant, a young girl, with an unnaturally wide smile. We were so naive, we thought we'd prove it was all superstition. We planned to sing at midnight, document everything with Sarah's new Polaroid camera. We even set up little bells around the room to catch any supernatural activity. Want to know something truly terrifying? I still have those Polaroids. Would you like to see what we captured that night? What really happens when you break a pact made with something that was never meant to be bargained with? 11:47 p.m., December 24th, 1969. We were in my family's living room. The Christmas tree lights cast dancing shadows on the walls. Sarah had her camera ready. Julie was adjusting her new tape recorder. Christmas gift she'd opened early. Look at us. So young. So stupid. The first sign something was wrong. The church bells. They started striking midnight at 11:48. 12 strikes, each one exactly 12 seconds apart. That's not mechanically possible. We started singing, 3 teenage voices breaking a 70-year silence. The first verse was normal. By the second, have you ever heard multiple versions of your own voice? Not an echo, something else, like your voice is being sung back to you from different points in time. That's what we heard. Our voices, but also older versions, younger versions, and voices that couldn't have been human. The Christmas tree lights began to pulse in rhythm with the singing, the shadows on the wall. They weren't matching our movements anymore. They were dancing to a different rhythm, a child's rhythm. Sarah saw them first. The hands coming through the wallpaper, pale, small, with fingers too long and nails blue from cold. Julie screamed when one grabbed her ankle. The frostbite mark never healed perfect. Little fingerprints burned into her skin. But the worst part, the photographs. Every family photo on our walls changed. The faces, they all had the same smile. That wide, unnatural smile from the 1899 photograph. And they were all turning to look at us. That's when my grandmother appeared. She knew what we'd done. She had the book, The Real Record of What Happened in 1899. The truth about Emily Winchester. About what really comes through when you sing Silent Night at midnight. Emily Winchester wasn't just offered as part of the pact. She was chosen because she could sing in perfect harmony with herself, in 3 different voices at once. The perfect conduit. But what came through that night in 1899? It liked her voice. Liked it so much, it kept it. And now it collects other voices too. Sarah lost her voice that night. Not from screaming, something took it. Julie developed a peculiar sensitivity. Any music makes her see those smiles in dark corners. And me, I became the watcher. The one who remembers. The one who has to protect the next generation. Emma brought home a flyer last week. Grand Christmas performance. Millbrook Children's Choir, midnight, December 24th. The choir director's name caught my eye. Robert Winchester III. How many of you believe in coincidences? The 8th family, returning after 124 years. But that's not what terrifies me. I've been watching the rehearsals. 7 children in the choir. But every photo I take shows 8. The 8th child, that smile. It's Emily's smile. The same one from 1899. Last night, I followed Emma to what she said was choir practice. The church was dark, locked, but I heard singing inside. Perfect harmony. Too perfect. When I checked the security cameras at the church later, the cameras show an empty church. But if you play the audio, for decades, I've tracked similar incidents. Every 54 years, almost to the day. Different towns, same pattern. 7 children disappeared during Christmas choir performances. Always during Silent Night. Always with an 8th figure in photographs, but never in person. Emma is 12 now. The same age Emily was. The same age I was. Just this once. After all, isn't this what I've been waiting for? To understand what really happened to Emily. If you're hearing this and a child sings Silent Night after midnight, ask yourself, what do you see in their smile? And more importantly, what sees you back?